everybody, thanks for tuning into this video. Today I'm going to talk about some drum processing and a little bass processing for this recent gear demo I put out on YouTube. I think it came out pretty cool. It's pretty heavy and it made me want to experiment with certain things to see how I can lean into that vibe a little more using some GGD software, in this case drums and bass. I'll go ahead and link the demo itself in the video description so you can check out what the context is, what's going on sonically. We should just dive right in. As you can see right here, GGD P5 is one of the elements. It's actually the main core of the drum sound for this mix. And then the other element is the One Kit Wonder Architects. And let's start with the P5 and describe some of the inner workings here. I like to work pretty swiftly with these types of things these days, especially with MIDI rolls. And like arranging my own stuff, I just want to be happy with the drum sound so I can feel inspired and move forward. And honestly, I just jumped into a preset, the Atropos, if that's how you pronounce it, full turbo preset. I was like, this is perfect, this works, let's move on. I'm usually skeptical with like contact built-in processing, to be honest with you. I mean, as you'll hear, or in my opinion, I think this sounds really cool. The only notable change I made to this preset is changing the snare. I think it was low, and then I changed it to high. I love high tuned snares, and just hearing rings and overtones these days, it's just my bread and butter. Other than that, I don't think I touched anything in regards to like even fader levels, let alone the actual turbo function itself. The yellow is indicating the turbo here, and it's true to the preset. It's full turbo, no alterations, easy and simple. The Architects portion is the kick and snare specifically. I just wanted to fill in what I wouldn't say missing frequencies, but frequencies I felt could just make the drums be a little bit more larger than life. It's kind of like law of physics breaking sort of a thing. Like the snare is a good example of like me wanting these really insane overtones and attitude from that really high tuned thing, but still seeking out this depth and meat from a snare that has way more depth to it. I can play the snare here versus the snare. So very different vibes. I'll go ahead and play just the drums in isolation here. So yeah, it's a pretty crazy difference when you solo just the P5 kit and then add back in those reinforcements. And real quick, just getting the routing stuff out of the way, these reinforcement samples, the kick is right along with the other kick as a track in the DAW, and then the snare, I sent the whole top and bottom mic, by the looks of it, to the top mic channel of the P5 snare. So it's all kind of combined together beforehand. You can see I did solo these overheads and rooms so that I can have those ambiances from the reinforcement kick and snare as well. And I engaged the parallel and master EQ on this, so it just has a little more life. Let's go ahead and look at the DAW to confirm the general routing here. We have kick, snare top, snare bottom, toms, close cymbal mics, overhead pair, room pairs, and the snare room, which is me just taking the room channel pairs and making it its own channel. I like to have a separate fader level control and EQ control for just that room portion. Just breaking laws of physics if I can. And then I route the snare top and bottom to a snare bus. And then this all goes to a drum bus, of course. Let's go ahead and just play a little bit of what we have going on. A quick thing I'll go over before we get into full-blown drum processing is that I have some EQ, multiband compression, and side chaining going on what I call a mids bus, which is everything besides percussive elements. So drum kit, impacts, and just auxiliary percussion that doesn't go to this. So I'm not just ducking bass like I used to do and people typically do. I like to try and duck literally everything that's going on. And I think if you do it the right amount, you'll get a really cool energy without completely destroying everything. Again, this context, I think it's a lot of fun to play around with ducking and get some cool energy. So I'm doing a bit of low-end taming. I think there's just a weird resonance going on that I just really don't want to jump in and out. And then this multiband here is just that extra step of low-end taming for me. I just feel it gives a more just general tightness. I like when the low end is pinned, and I just wanted that little extra step. Admittedly, I went a little harder with this type of stuff because this arrangement is very bouncy. It's switching between palm mutes and open a lot. It's one of my favorite compressors, tried and true. It just adds a really cool glue when it's at a slow attack. It's more like a transient driven glue, which I just love for that really heavy type of vibe. Let's go over to the drums and see what we did there. Starting with the kick. It's going to be pretty minimal stuff across the board as opposed to like some sort of raw drum sound processing that. The kick, the takeaway here is that it's just a bit too clicky. I like when it feels a bit more pillowy and mid-rangey lately, especially with this type of stuff. Don't really need that upper like 8 to 10K personally. And then the C4 thing, I've been doing this for a very long time. It's adding some sort of, I just say vibe. I think it's some sort of either crossover phase element or maybe some sort of saturation element. The kick just feels a lot better to me when you add this in. And then lastly, we have drum leveler. I just think that's an essential tool for anybody, whether it's real drums or fake. Even if the hits are actually changing in character, you're still getting that level evenness, which I think is cool. I'll go to the snare top, which again is this Architects snare and the snare top of the P5 snare. It's kind of a crude routing, but it works for me. And that's just simply some transient control. And then the snare bottom is just nothing going on. I was fine with the fader balance internally. The toms had a little bit of adjustment. The main takeaway here with these EQs is just getting it a bit more outside of the, or cutting, I should say, outside of the mix. I felt like they were a bit dark. They're really good source tone toms. I just wanted to get it a bit brighter, a bit more attacky. I always like to pull sustain out of toms, but that just varies depending on the speed of the song and the toms themselves, the resonance I'll find a little spot with toms and do a before after. Clearly louder and more present. Let's go ahead and hear it. I mean, the goal is to just get it to cut at the end of the day. Close spot mics of the cymbals is 0 processing. Overheads, just a little level jump on the fader, and then yeah, tackling some resonances. I believe these are from the Crash. I think most cymbals are gonna just give you some trouble somewhere, and it just depends how picky you are with those types of things. I copied and pasted one of them, it looks like, over to the room channel, just to keep it clean. And then the snare room, I'm just trying to get more of that overtone. I do think the room is providing a lot. I can go ahead and mute it in the playback. Real quick, the snare bus, I believe it's very minimal. The turbo's doing a lot of heavy lifting here. So again, I'm very happy with that sort of process. Yeah, just a little bit of brightening here, and I believe just a tiny bit here as well. Yeah, just silky mode, not even a dB. Awesome. And then the parallel compressor, which I believe is just snare being sent to it. I think my auxiliary percussion is being sent, but I'll pull that out just for the sake of this discussion. So yeah, transient suppression, sustain, increasing. I use the FET compressor at fast attack, fast release, but in conjunction with that, I really like to have an L1 suppressing the transient. And then MV2 is almost like an assistant parallel compressor. What it's doing to me is a bit more nebulous, but I just find that it's squeezing the dynamic range quite a bit. EQing the parallel compressor after is kind of crucial to me in every mix to some extent. I really like to be in control of what frequencies after the smashing of the dynamics are being added back into the mix. I don't want any offensive stuff. Last but not least is the drum bus itself. Again, we have some MV2. It's just squeezing that dynamic range a bit. Not much need for dynamics in this type of arrangement, so I am fine with doing lots of MV2 processing. And then I think turbo just made everything a little bit hot in the upper mids and low highs. So just addressing that, the drum bus was a simple solution. And then this fast attack, fast release trick, I see lots of amazing engineers do this on the mix bus primarily, but I've found just doing it on the drum bus is doing what I've needed. I feel like I change settings a lot between mixes, but for this type of setting, I've been really enjoying this. Much more glue, a bit more of a thickness to the sound overall. Yeah, so I highly recommend just blending different libraries, different samples you like. I've been doing it a lot with so many different kits of theirs, and I just love chasing that sort of unique sound that just feels like it's fun and fresh. Let's move on to the bass portion of things. We have the Nolly Bass by GGD, just came out, and I've been really just enjoying the unique character of it, really, is just what I keep saying when people ask about it. And yeah, it's just a super unique sort of vibe, but it's very musical. It's very mid-range focused. It melds with the guitars really well. It was pretty effortless. You see plugins going on after the fact, but I've done so much more than this to basses after. Basses are very willing to be processed, I want to say. This was a pretty effortless instrument to use to get to just feel really good and musical. So with the bass, arrangement wise, I went for more of a Meshuggah like unison approach where the guitars are extremely low, they're in F, and then the bass is just pretending to be a 4-string, just playing like the F that's not an octave below the guitars, because that, while it's fun, I didn't really feel I needed that deepness. I just wanted more of that like powerful mid-range aggression. So yeah, I dig that type of sound a lot. I went ahead and bypassed the built-in distortion. I'll go ahead and play it though, because it's also sick and it's effortless. And then if I play it with mine, it was one of those things where I wanted the bass to just have a distortion character that just gets out of the way a little bit. I just felt like it needed to be a bit mellowed out. So I went ahead and tried this plugin that actually my friend made, bandmate actually. I kind of just moved knobs around until it felt really good. And then after that, we just have some just taming of frequencies and some taming of dynamics. So it's a very fast acting compressor there. We're adding more to that like mellowing out thing that I mentioned there, but I really like to approach it in a dynamic way with bass because frequencies are just jumping around all over. One thing I've noticed with the Nolly Bass is this looks like an aggressive template, but it's actually at 24%. I didn't actually have to go the full 100 that it's usually defaulted to, because it's a very musical low mid, upper bass, low mid, and I didn't have to be super aggressive with it, which is great to me. I like when it just is singing in that range, because that range can be a lot of trouble. And then just a bit of soothe. Let's go ahead and take everything past the distortion out. And let's play with the drums. Well, that's the drum and bass processing in this session. I hope that was helpful, insightful in some way, and not much else to say, but thanks for watching and happy mixing, guys.